the beat hit, it's queenish. Friday nights be gleaming. We stay hype with guys like no matter what, cause we queenin'. Hey, we queenin'. We queenin'. When them other chicks be scheming, we stay hype cause we queenin'.
When the queens in the building, throw them hands up. Got a crown on my head, no we can be touched.
What up, Night Hypers? Hi! Oh my God, I'm so happy. Excited. We got a lot of people in the building today. A lot of people in the studio.
That excited for me to be here.
I'm DJ
I'm
Missy E.
trying not to be loud. I'm your hype home girl. Hashtag swag easy.
And we are in the Stewed, aka Rebel
Cuts.
Barbershop.
Shout out to my best friend.
F you on the barber. What's up, girl? I see you over there.
She mean.
And this is the Night Hype Show
Featuring
we got a name off the list.
Favorite
Hold
for
on.
the podcast.
Hey,
What's up, y'all?
What's happening?
What's up?
Your boy
And-
Damo.
Right?
JG.
And Nick B.
Hey, and this is just 3 out of the.
Five.
Right.
Okay. But they're
You
not a
should,
guest,
dog.
though.
Whoa,
They're not a
whoa,
guest,
whoa.
though.
They're not the
Six.
guests, but the guests that we have
They're our
here, though.
co-hosts, which is super dope. Thank
Mhm.
y'all for
AB.
coming and hanging out with us.
No problem.
Oh, we're
Appreciate
not
y'all.
going to say their names in their absence like at church.
No.
Like
you got dogged us out
They be
last
dogging me.
Yep.
You don't get no prayer
Okay.
card?
No prayer
Justin
card.
gonna have to do it.
Okay, we're not here alone. We are here with general election.
Mm-hmm.
He
Sure.
made it through. Congratulations
He
to
did.
Mr.
Thank you.
Quinton
Hey.
Lucas for
Okay,
mayor.
that's a start. In your word, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Good to be
In your
back.
word, that's
Good
a
to
great
be back.
start.
Yeah.
Yes, glad to have you back.
So we really appreciate it because you did keep your word and
Sure
you
did.
said, hey, if I keep advancing through here, even when I become mayor, I'm going to come back, holler at you girls, and talk to you about what's going on. And so you're here.
I'm here. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And also, I'm excited that you guys are here with us because this is really important to me. Politics, if you didn't know. He said I'm loud on every show. But I get really passionate because this is not something we as African Americans talk about a lot. And I will tell you today we're going to use labels, if that's okay with
That's
everyone, because I feel like when you use labels, your brain can process things easier. So, when I'm not trying to be rude if I say like white people or black people or, poor, whatever, just call it what it is. So with this being a political interview, what is it like for you on the campaign trail? Like, what is life like day to day?
I was thinking about it yesterday because I did a meet and greet for about 2 hours
Mhm.
outside off of Blue Ridge and 52nd Street. I mean, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's tiring. I talk too much.
But
But you know what? I mean, I get to claim as my job that I get to talk to people all day. Every day is stimulating. You get some complaints, but you get some compliments.
Right.
And I'm just excited to do it. And as we get closer to the election, they throwing more mud at me and all of that, but I'm positive because when I go to a church, I go to a park, I walk down the street, I'm seeing a lot of people that are excited about this race and what we can do in Kansas City for the next 4 years or 8 years. And I'm excited to make change in Kansas City.
8 years.
We need whenever they talk about momentum and progress for it not to just be in a few neighborhoods of the city and often not our own. And so that's what I'm here for, and that's what I'm excited about.
Hey.
So what was the first thing you wanted to change as far as being the mayor? What made you even want to run? And the first thing
I think the thing that I wanted to change the most is how much stuff, and a lot of y'all came up here, except you from Arkansas. Right?
I'm from
forget.
Arkansas.
But too much is the same.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God.
I grew
I've
up.
been here for 12 years. In this
Right,
city.
and I grew up in some of these spots, the same abandoned house down the street, the same dumping spot, the same level of violent crime. And so I think the first thing I want to change is, I'd like to see us drop the number of homicides, of gun-related crimes in this city dramatically. We're on the top 5 most dangerous cities list, top 5, right? We need to get off that. That is a change I want to make immediately. Now, the harder part is how do you do it? I think it's a mix. I knew he was about to
that's
do
what I
that.
was gonna
I saw him leaning in.
Exactly what I was gonna say.
It's just kind of like, that sounds well and good.
How-
Right. You're like, how are you going to do it? How particularly when people have it? A few different things. One, you need to make sure you can't just invest in police alone, right? You need to invest in both our mental health side of things, right? You got a lot of people dealing with trauma every day. You need to make sure after there's a shooting somewhere, there is somebody who's actually reaching out in the neighborhood, not just from the we're looking for people way, but in this sort of like, how do we de-escalate? because so much of our crime right now is either retaliation relating to other things or also related to domestic violence and intimate partner violence.
Especially
and
women.
and I would like to see us actually do more in the counseling side, intervention side, getting people who are in a troubled relationship out of the house. Half the time, if you go to a shelter for a night, where do you go back to? Right? And those are things that the city could actually be funding now. We're spending it on things like toys and instead of actually trying to spend it in the community itself. Not to mention, right, and then the broader thing, I talk about housing a lot. Yeah. You need to make sure that when we talk about neighborhoods like this one and all around the city, we're talking about more rehab that gets people jobs. We're not tearing down neighborhoods anymore. If y'all been in Beacon Hill at about 25th and Truce, you see an example of a neighborhood that was just torn down. They built a bunch of stuff. Now there are a bunch of houses that are $600,000-$700,000. A community that does not look like us at all, right? In fact, the exact opposite. And I'd like to see us actually making sure we're investing in our core neighborhoods through rehab funds. And you may say, I just said a bunch of things that cost money. We have the money. We spent $10 million to demolish homes on the east side in the last 4 years. Wow. $10 million to not make any new money. When you talk about the amount of money we spend to incarcerate, even at the municipal level, right? These are things that we're losing money every year, not building anything positive. So those are, I think, God, when you look at my first year, that's where I'm trying to change the focus immediately.
Gotcha. Yes, that's a great.
What about schooling? Like in schools, I feel like if we had more courses that was
like teaching credits and all that
life
skills,
skills,
life skills, opposed to social studies this and algebra 58,
trigonometry. We don't use trigonometry
and I'm
outside
mad at the calculus.
Why we?
You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
And I don't remember a thing.
You know, it's classes that they could put in to make us more business
even conflict resolution classes at the young age, meditation, like awareness, mindfulness things, like literally intervening in our school system, you know, at a lower age and doing different alternatives. It's not just putting them on medicine or using the school to prison pipeline or, you know, just taking advantage.
I mean, right. So we need to do all of that. Right up the street at Southeast, one thing they've started doing is a conflict resolution class, telling people how you can actually resolve a lot of these issues without needing to fight, without needing to shoot, all that sort of stuff. That's something that we're integrating into more of the KCPS curriculum. I think that's a good thing. But on your point, I mean, I'll just give you a background. I started in law school teaching in prisons. So I've been a volunteer in and out of prisons for a number of years. And most of the people who were in, and I started in a maximum security prison in New York State. And I was working with men. Most of the men who were there were saying, I want to be able to take a business class. I want to be able to go back out because, you know, most people in certain communities don't understand. Everybody's coming out for the most part. How are you going to make sure people come out with skills, come out with opportunities, come out knowing how to start a business instead of just kind of like, all right, well, I was just there for a while and I learned anything new, productive, anything of that sort. So my view is on the business classes, we need more, but here's the thing that we also need. We need more people to step up into volunteering in our schools, using their experiences being examples in our schools as well. Because right now, I don't know if we don't have enough teachers to teach the business classes, right? We don't have, I think, the apparatus of people that have been experienced with starting businesses in the community to be part of it now. I'd like to create opportunities for them to spend, because nobody wants to give up their business necessarily, but they may be able to give up an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? Or take on more apprentices. You know, in the suburbs, they actually have programs like this called CAPS, right? Northland CAPS, Blue Valley out in Kansas has one where students get a chance to be interns in businesses for like 4 years. And then sometimes that can turn into a career, that can turn into an opportunity. You know, we have little things like that, but nothing that defined in KCPS or Center or Grandview. And I would like to, or Raytown, and I would like to see that happen in a lot of our majority Black districts. I think that's how you start with that, teaching people real life skills, because the way that you really learn life skills is through experience. And, you know, so getting people that experience is, I think, the only way to do it. In law, the only way I learned how to do stuff was through experience and talking to people and getting that interaction. We need to do that with kids from a younger age and make it available not just to kids in the suburbs, but kids in the city.
Now, I got a question for all of y'all Black men. Gotta love them. Okay, so when we talk about, you know, you talk about volunteers and getting in, once Nipsey died, of course, the marathon continues, but it was like, I mean, what I already saw as far as unity and a lot of Black men stepping up and giving back to their community, I saw even more. I think I made a post and just named like Quinton and Chris Good and Ryan Harvey and, you know, you guys that are stepping outside of the box and stereotypes. How is it for you personally to live in this climate of society? And then, you know, I don't want to say you don't know about politics, but, you know, I asked you earlier, like, where are you going to vote?
Mm-hmm.
How is it for you to be a Black man in, you know, politics and to really live in this society and climate today?
I think for me, like, I used to vote a lot because I felt like, you know, our ancestors fought for it. So for me not to vote was spitting in their face.
Yeah.
You know, but then, you know, with the whole Trump thing, like, I felt like everybody went out and voted because, you know, they did that whole campaign, your vote matters. But then when you vote against something and it still happens, how do you make me feel like my vote matters if we voted no and you say yes anyway?
Especially when they said he really didn't win.
Right, because the majority didn't vote for it.
So it started to make you think it's shady.
Yeah.
And it's like, what am I doing here?
Especially when they brought up The Simpsons, like he was.
20 years ago, he was predicted to win
like
the presidency.
Yeah, they had him. Yeah.
He was going down the steps, and they had like his banner, and then there was a side picture of him going down the steps in real life, and it was his banner. It was weird.
Is good for that.
The Simpsons do be predicting stuff, though.
But that was just dead on, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it was like, super dead on.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Is like, as a Black community, you know, we feel like our vote doesn't matter, or the only time we feel like we matter is when they're needing a vote at the end of the election. Like, oh, let me stop off here real quick, get these votes and burn out. So how do you make us feel like our vote matters?
Right.
That's a good question.
You know, that is a good question. I mean, I think, and one thing, I've always been voting, right? So I kind of came from your background of, I got to vote. I just got to make sure because, you know, that's what I'm supposed to do. But having been through a bunch of losing elections and all of that, it does you get disgruntled about it. I think the thing that I always try to tell people is, it's about resources. It's about how we actually invest in and change our community. Because the thing that's going to happen, things are going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And so for me, it is, do we want to have policing that is targeting nonviolent offenses? Right? And do we want to have things like, for example, I'll give you a Kansas City conversation right now. There's a debate as to whether we need to build a new Kansas City, Missouri municipal jail, as distinct from a jail for Jackson County. So in Kansas City right now, we are evaluating building like a $70-80 million jail for the county and a separate $40 million jail for the city. That's going to be $120 million you could spend on a whole bunch of stuff we were just talking about.
A whole bunch of stuff.
And for me, it's all about how we going. So we need your voice to make those choices. Because I was in a council meeting and I was just about the only one saying, no, do not do that. And I'm not soft on anything.
You do be talking about that a lot.
But it's just kind of like, I mean, and it's those choices that are made every day. How our school kids are educated, right? How neighborhoods get cleaned up, where you get sidewalks. And so for me, it's kind of about, if we don't make our voice heard, somebody else is going to make choices for us. Right. And I think, yeah, we may not always win, but it even goes like this. Even if you don't win, even in the Trump election, right? Black people turning out to vote meant that they needed to pay attention to us. They need to pay attention to us in the next election when they're making their budget choices and all that sort of stuff, even if you don't win. Because they always know.
Black women was the ones who was like, no, we not going. And we went out and voted.
Look at Alabama, right? Where there's a Democratic senator right now. And I know Democrats aren't all end all be all, but that was because Black women showed up, voted like 98% for this dude, and managed to, I think, change the dynamic of the race. And what that meant is we have one more vote right now in the Senate that's like fighting for our issues and pushing for those things. So, yeah, look, I'm if you talk about shadiness or being cynical, right? I'm in it, right? Yeah. And so I see that every day. And then the thing that kills me is sometimes I'm trying to say, where are my votes behind me? Who's going to be with me? And I look around and I'm like, we don't have it. Yeah. And so that's why I think we need to be out there.
I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to stimulate this conversation today for all of us, because like you, I mean, you know, we so funny because I remember when Nip died, you know, he was like, ride for me. But like right now, this is how we ride. This is how we make changes, is voting in the correct people. And it's gonna sound bad, but it's a lot of people for us that are on the ballot come June 18th. A lot of people that are for us. And I truly believe with their camaraderie and the fact that you all have been in the same circles, and like Brandon Ellington, Joey Thomas, Stacey, these are really people who care about Kansas City just like y'all. And if y'all do rally behind them and you do go out and vote, it shows people that we are ready to take back our community. We are here for a real purpose and not just, you know, for a stereotype, or not. Like, we want our communities fixed, period. And that's what voting does. That's right.
You said vote for the correct person, but what do you say to the mind that thinks, I've heard it all before?
That's a good question.
You know what I'm saying? How do you change that person's mind?
You know, I think a few things. Step one, and I'm gonna just say it like this: in anything else in life, do you give up? Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you, let's say you've been trying to do something for a long time, all that sort of stuff, you don't stop pushing for better for your community. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not so much about somebody, you know, talked all this mess in the 90s or the 2000s or last year and all of that. Mm-hmm. It's kind of about how can I make a bigger and better difference today, right? This is your voice, right? Right now, there's a good chance I might be mayor of Kansas City, and we're sitting across from each other, right? And we're building a connection right now, and we all are. And then that means that somebody who's watching, or somebody knows you, has that different connection and can do something.
It comes to you.
Because, you know, I mean, I'll just tell you the truth. I got my mother to vote for the first time. She's probably 42 years old. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, no, you got to vote. She's like, it ain't going to make no difference, right? And I'm like,
because that's what you hear a lot.
Right. And everybody says, and I get that, but I'm like, the real way you make sure you make no difference is not being engaged at all. Because there are a whole bunch of other people, right, in different areas. There's a reason that this country is kind of run by older white folks, right? And our politics reflect that, right? We don't reform things in the same way. We don't do all types of stuff because a lot of, I mean, not just black folks, young people, right? And when I say young, we got some polls back, and they were like, yeah, you do well with people under 50. And they called that young. I'm like, wow, that's a big spread. That's like no, that's the vast majority of people. So for me, it's kind of like, it's understanding that the system it is messed up, right? And I'm in the justice system, I'm in politics and all that. I'm in a whole bunch of things that are broken. But my view is, how do I fix it? Mm-hmm. And then I'll just tell you one other thing. I worked on a death penalty case a few years back for a brother who was on death row and ultimately got executed. That was probably one of the most significant experiences of my life, because I was like, man, it was all messed up. But why? The prosecutor, the judge, the public defender, all that stuff is things we're choosing politically. And so my thing is, I almost owe it to him, Curtis, and his family to try to say, how can I get inside the system and try to change it and try to turn it over? Because otherwise, people like him going to keep running into that.
Or you get the Netflix show When They See Us about the Central Five. And I haven't watched it yet because you have seen the sentiments, of course, over social media. We experience, of course, a lot of injustice, racism, systematic bondages day to day. But when it's like right there and it's solid proof, and that for me tells me you have to start there. Like, you have to, when you growing something, you have to put it in the ground. It has to start small and then it grows out big. That's right. So it's like, okay, if I need to vote in a different mayor, a different councilman, a different prosecutor, a different whatever, and that's my vote, I'm gonna use it because they're gonna take advantage regardless. Right. Like you said, stuff is gonna happen regardless.
So we spoke on, like, as far as like being able to get more police and stuff, but what about as far as the criminals? But what about policing the police though?
Yeah,
who's gonna do that? How do we go about that?
We need to do that too. I mean, here's the first thing. We need to think about policing in a different way, right? It's not. I mean, we've been basically for the last like 500 years. They've had that same view of like how police are in some ways kind of working with business, working with everything to kind of keep systems the same, right? And my view is we need to see it differently. First, I want, not that this is an end all be all, but We need to hire people at the police department who aren't police officers, right? I want social workers. I want folks that are like working in the community. Because I told this to some folks the other day. Actually, it was a group of Latinos who were kind of saying, well, yeah, people are looking at undocumented folks and all of that. I'm like, well, one issue is the police have a big budget. How do we make it so they're doing more in connection with how we actually make communities safe? And we all know good and well, you can't just have officers driving around all the time. Mm-hmm. You need people who are making connections in the community. You need people that are actually making sure that like children have opportunities or understanding different ways to go. Mm-hmm. And so my thing on like, how do we police our community? It's kind of like, how do we set up a community that's actually trying to help the humans who live in it? Not just trying to like actually come down on them, right? And so for me, the easiest way to do that is one, make sure if you need opportunities, right? If you need help with something, I know people don't like to admit to needing help with things, but like especially you find a different way, right? I mean, we all live in real neighborhoods. I walk by so many homeless people in my neighborhood every day, and so many people where I'm like, man, you don't want to be right there, yeah. But right, where's the opportunity for them to get off the streets, right? And how do we start to build that? And how can we create those sorts of things? And so my biggest thing is to start investing differently in what we're doing every day.
Did you ask?
Yeah, I feel like I got Ed Bradley right here.
We talked. So we was talking, and we also spoke on Nip. You brought up Nip. I think it's so easy for us to listen to a person like Nip because we know where he comes from.
Right.
Even when you think about pastors, they speak over our head and stuff. I find it easier to listen to somebody that. Let's just say a hip hop pastor or something. That's right. So I was just gonna ask your background, like where do you come? Because if you're from there, we're more likely to listen to you because you know our struggle. Absolutely.
It's funny because I sound the way I do, and it's always been interesting because it's been kind of my whole life. But I'll tell you where I'm from, like everybody else. I feel like everybody else I know in Kansas City. I was born here. We moved around probably every 6 months. So I stayed at 66 in Askew, 41st in Indiana, Parade Park, 82nd in Truce.
So you can't sit.
Grandview for a minute.
Right?
I mean, you know that, right? Right, but the thing is, I mean, like a whole bunch of it, because it's funny, people are like, well, what neighborhood are you from? Like, we moved in so many different neighborhoods. Yeah. That's why, like, one of the issues I have in the political establishment is that, like, they always say you need to talk to neighborhood leaders. What about everybody who mainly has never been to a neighborhood meeting at all? Because when my mama was raising me and my two older sisters, no men around in the home. I never met my father, right? It was just kind of like she just figuring out and living every day and catching the bus and doing all that sort of thing. And so the thing that like got me to where I am now was, I'll admit, we talked about this before, I was growing up, I was a nerd. And the only reason I became a nerd was because I wanted air conditioning in the summer, so I went up to the library. True story, right? I went up to the Southeast Library half the time. When we stayed on Truce, would ride my bike over to the Waldo Library and would just sit there all day because it was hot inside the house, right? Now, if I was probably a more social person, I would actually went out and played with other kids or something. But I guess maybe it worked out over the years. Right. But that's my story. And then like my family story. My older sister, she works hard, raising 6 kids by herself. I got another sister raising 2. Both of them are in homes that are just ran by women alone. Got a nephew who just joined the Marine Corps. Well, we're proud of him, but he's looking for opportunity. He's got a child on the way. I mean, that's why, we talk with polish in politics because you got to have to play in all worlds. But at the same time, when people are talking about experiences, when they're talking about being out of the criminal justice system or anything else under the sun, those are all things that, I know about.
You see experience.
Right? And it's, and that's why you can't, too many people in politics, that's why I get why people are alienated too. Too many pastors do this too. They're these like broad strokes. People are this way or that way, or you need to get your life right or this way.
Right.
And it's kind of like humans are, we're more complicated.
Yeah, they don't
you act
act
like you haven't been through this stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's very important for me to look in the mirror and see you. I mean, see me in
that's
you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So that's why I asked that question.
Zay got a question for you.
Oh yeah. So you brought up about the police. So I was wondering, what would you guys do to reduce recidivism?
Yeah.
In terms of like parole, because instead of making it to where the system is now, where it's keeping people within the system, how do you help them get out of it?
What is recidivism?
repeat offending, right? Keep people from repeating.
Or you
being
like
arrested.
Meek Mill, you've been on probation for 10 years for popping a wheelie. Just
you sure do.
And kind of adding on to that, do you feel like, you just said there was like something like 110 million that they was talking about building jails. Do you feel like they turned prison into a business, so they gotta fill them businesses?
Prisons are, it's crazy. Prison is such a big business. And I say this, the way I got into working in the prisons, and I worked in a prison in upstate New York, and it was built on an economy of taking mainly brothers and Latino men from New York City, shipping them upstate, right? Building an economy upstate, and that was how they do it. And you come back to Missouri, that's the story how people get to Jeff City and Cameron and all these other places. And if you're over in Kansas, that's how you get into Lansing or whatever else. So yes, it is built on that. How do we reduce it? So I only plug my website once, QuintonLucas.org, because I got a platform on it, QuintonLucas.org. You figure it out. But we've got this platform called Racial and Economic Justice, because so many people use the word social justice and nobody knows what it means. Right. For me, so what is this platform about? It's limiting the number of offenses that get you arrested in the first place. We got so many people that get picked up on an ordinance violation. Ordinances are cutting your weeds or doing anything of the sort. And then you run into trouble for that. And frankly, you're getting penalized for being poor. But then you end up on a probation program or something of that sort, and then you can't get in trouble. I'm just putting myself on blast like this. I really am. And I will, right?
I know.
So,
I like it. I like it.
So we did. No, it's fine because you know what? It's good and honest, right? I had an offense for which I was charged in October, right? I knew at the moment it happened, I was like, this don't seem like the sort of thing that I should get convicted of. But what did I have that empowered me? I had money. Right? Had the money to hire somebody and had the ability, right? I had connections to not connections to get out of it, trust me, but had the money to actually get through it. But what was I in? Right? For 6 months, there's a period that if I got caught drinking, right? If you got caught doing anything else, if I got caught speeding, right? Then I'd be right back in. And then imagine if you can't afford that. So then you have 2 charges on you. And then that would give you, and then you usually cut a plea deal, right? And then you have something else. And it just starts to build on that until it's the point where you don't have a driver's license, let's say. And then all of a sudden, right, you're in a situation where, you get arrested because you're driving around and get to work because the city ain't got good public transit, and you got a job at the airport or something.
And potholes everywhere.
Right.
And I done got a whole bunch of tires flattened by these potholes.
Right. That's true. And so but the thing is, and that happens and no matter the offense, it just builds up on people. And so to your question on recidivism or people that are getting caught up in this cycle, it happens often in your teens, right? That you get in a fight at Southeast. I talked to a boy who's a junior, right? He got in a fight at 16, got state charges, right? A fist fight. Now, I guess I didn't see what he did to the other person, but nevertheless, a fist fight like high school boys do. But right, he's looking at state charges for it. So then if he's not squeaky clean for 2 years, up to and including your tags or getting caught with weed or anything like that in other communities, I say this having gone to college and law school, there's a whole group of people that are doing I know lawyers that are getting high every day, right? I know lots of people who are doing that, but there are different worlds for the 2 different people. So step 1 is not putting people in the system at all in the first place, right? Step 2 is making sure that in every incarceration facility, every jail or something like that, I want more people to be able to get out and to have completed their service to the state or to the community. This whole thing where they're reaching out in your life forever, right? And all that sort of stuff creates this never-ending it's like debt. It really is like being in debt. In the same way that you get in credit card debt, then you're like, man, and then you got student loans and all of that. If you try to do that, we're basically creating something just like debt, where there are these offenses that follow you forever. That's why one of my favorite platform positions. The current mayor could do it. Any mayor of this city ever could have. The mayor gets to pardon certain offenses. I can, and I plan to, pardon every person who has been convicted of a misdemeanor marijuana offense in Kansas City, Missouri. Right?
If you Kansas City,
I was going to say that marijuana charge.
Can somebody
Right. If you got, because there's so many people who have, and it's different in different communities. And I'll say it with this passion, then I'll move on because I know y'all got stuff to talk about. I went to an outstanding college and law school, and it amazed me because I'm in school with all these well-to-do white kids. I'm like, dang, they do a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
Right? They doing a lot, and it's like
the most.
Right, and it's like
all of them,
and it's guilt-free. Right? They just get to walk around.
With it.
Right, they're just like, I mean, it's just this different life.
They just know they're going home at night too.
Exactly.
With those problems.
And to the extent that if they run into an officer, it's like, oh no, it's all good. Whereas like I remember going back to campus just walking around with my backpack on and like, son, you need to show me your identification. Right? And I mean, and so that's how so many of our people get caught up in the system. That's why I want to say, no. We're not just gonna decriminalize marijuana now, right? We're going to make sure that anybody who's had to deal with that on their record in the past has it cleared so that they can go ahead and let's say they get in trouble in the future. I don't want them to have that be yet another thing so the judge is saying, oh, you're a really bad person because you got a 1995, possession of marijuana thing because they got
y'all make it legal.
Period.
Right. I got a more of a loaded question. So when you go to the jails, what do you go to the jails to do and say, first off?
When I go to the judge?
No, the jails. You said you go to the jails.
I teach. I teach a class on constitutional law. The idea is, it might seem not relevant because they always be like, can't you teach a business class? I'm like, you got a lawyer right now. And our business is jails, actually, so look out for us. But nevertheless, no, I was teaching a class that helped men get their junior college degree, their associate's degree. And so, there are a bunch of people that were trying to get out with a degree and that sort of thing. And my job, my volunteering actually, was to just make sure folks had the chance to take a class, get some credits towards a college degree. A lot of people were trying to do that, and that was what we were doing. And I still remember my favorite story. I gave grades at the end of the semester because I had to. And there was this one, actually a white boy from Syracuse, New York, who, he, God bless him, he just wasn't the sharpest fella. But, everybody else would get stuff. But then at the end, I was like, I had to give him a D, right? And so I gave him his paper, and I was scared he'd be mad. And then that was actually one of the sweetest things I ever said. He's like, oh, my God, I'm going to call my mom. I passed the college class. And I was like, man,
you passed it.
I'm like, you go, man. But it was, I think more than just the credits, it was about telling people that you can't be too cynical about the system. If you stay in jail for 5, 10 years, I get it. I get how you can come out and say, man, everything's against me. My view is you got to come out, and I'm not telling you just be positive, but you got to come out ready to make a difference, right? Because if you're not, then the world's going to stay on you. It's going to keep that boot on you, right? But instead, if you're like, look, I got an education, or I'm empowered to do this, right? Then that changes your whole perspective, because we can't have. Because I think the parole system, the criminal justice system is meant to beat you down. It's meant to get you scared. It's meant to get you cautious. It's meant to make you nervous every time you see an officer driving around. What I wanted to tell people was, no, you have rights, right? And you know what? You should walk around with your head up like anybody else.
Do they still have like the Scared Straight programs?
Not exactly. I mean, not really.
Those even work?
I think that's a question. One of the problems in the justice system is I think we do switch off and on all the time. But for kids, we had them. But, the biggest problem, I still remember when I was a kid, Missouri was like, yeah, now we can charge a 13-year-old for an adult offense, right? Because they always find the absolute worst offense ever. And everybody's like, oh, that kid needs to. But then it ends up like wrapping in all these other people who have no business in it. And if you want to know my biggest issue with politics, for example, the mayor had a sales tax proposal for early childhood education, which I didn't, which I like early childhood, but here's my problem too often. People like black kids until they're about 10 years old, right? We're all cute and all that sort of stuff. But by the time we're 12, 13, 14.
Then you turn into a thug.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
That's what I was getting to, really. So instead of having them Scared Straight programs going to the jail, like if they could have programs to where you can grab one of these inmates and bring them to the school.
That's true.
To the schools, middle school, high school, when you're about to graduate.
That's good.
They can let them know where they messed up at.
Right.
Once they graduated.
That's right.
To keep you on that,
Because like what y'all were saying, whether it be business, whether it be crime, whether it be life, whether it be sex, anything, right? experience or learning from others' negative experiences makes a world of difference, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know about it, then you're not going to learn the mistakes from other people.
You know, and the boys nowadays are followers.
Yeah.
So if you can get one of the inmates like, hey, I followed this crowd forever and it got me here for life. You know, that might change somebody's life.
Nowadays?
Yeah.
Maybe like
if you get inmate, I'm just saying, you know, you get the inmates coming in.
Yeah.
You know, telling them how they got there. Like, it might later, they'll remember that.
I was just because you said nowadays they followers.
Well, yeah, forever. Yeah, they've been followers, but more than ever.
We was followers.
Here they
you know,
go.
we got social media now. You know,
yeah,
what I
so
mean?
you really be following people. That's true.
You know, tremendously worse now.
Yeah, you're right.
That's true.
So, do you think they got programs that can do that?
I don't think
would that be
No, they don't have good programs
Would that
to do
be
that.
possible to do it?
And I'll give you the example. I mean, so we need to, that's another reason budgets matter. When I was volunteering in the state of Kansas, Missouri wouldn't even let me volunteer. And I was working for a federal judge. My credentials were fine, right? All that sort of stuff.
Damn,
But Kansas, they just kept cutting the budget more and more, right? And cut more of those programs because like we can't do a background check on all these people. And so that's why you need people in there who are like, no, we are all human beings.
We're all
Do you want somebody to come back to KCK or KCMO with opportunities and hope? Or do you want somebody coming back angry who ain't got any opportunity for jobs and all of that? And you want to be able to teach the kids these days, you know, hey, these are the different paths you can take. Learn from me.
Yeah.
Because the thing that I learned from my nephews, and I'll just admit it because y'all have already picked up on it. You know, my nephews, I try to tell them like, yeah, we grew up broke. We were living on the same, I mean, we're moving around. I was crashing in a nursing home with my great aunt. And my nephew didn't believe it when he was 16 because he was just like, man, you ain't like me. You're a lawyer. You wear suits. You're nothing like me. And we need people. I think we need as many people to expose to them as possible to say, look, there are a lot of different ways to be a black man in our city, in our country. And I want more black men in front of them.
Exactly. So instead of them having to come in and drop every week, they should be able to pull up at a school and talk about their struggle.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Real good idea.
He's gonna be running for mayor.
I didn't want to step on your feet. Say that.
We need you to.
Right.
So I was going to ask you a question. You know, you were the chair of the housing committee,
yes, sir.
Right? So how does it feel to come back to Kansas City and still kind of feel like, I know Kansas City is desegregated, but it's still segregated in a sense because there's certain neighborhoods that have always been black.
Yeah.
If things are the same, they're always going to be black. How do we change that?
Yeah. I see this on the campaign all the time. I'm almost always in an exclusively black, exclusively white, exclusively Latino environment. I mean, and some of that, you know, is social choice. But here's my thing that we need to do. I want to uplift our poorest communities.
Yeah.
Right. And so my view is I'm happy to keep the community all black, but what I want to do is make sure that we actually have houses that are fixed up, that we're actually making sure we're getting money into the community. I mean, I'm going to nerd out on this again. Housing rehabilitation is something we need to do so much more of. How many people need second chances, right? How many people need second chances either in their credit, their criminal record, anything of that sort? That's the way you actually get more people jobs.
Yeah.
That's the way you get more people housing. Because, you know, when my family was moving around, jumping around all the time, it was these landlords taking advantage of us. Whereas if somebody could have said to my mother back in the day, hey, for $200 less than your current rent, and man, your credit's messed up, but we can get you an opportunity to own a home, right? And you and your kids aren't moving around, and you get to be a part of this, and then you can stabilize something, right? I mean, that's something we still need to do. And then on the flip side, for the person who's fixing up the house, right? You can build wealth in our community because usually a brother or something, or sister, right? Who's the developer gets to own 5, then 10 houses, right? And then they can hire people who are actually in the community who can work on the houses instead of what we do now. We think we changed the community from a one-off big project like the airport, where all the labor's got to be union, all the labor's got to be picked in a certain way, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, while I see merit in that, I'm just kind of like, you need to hit people in more pinpointed ways.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who just got out of, you know, let's say Lansing, Kansas, state prison there, and you're back in Kansas City, Missouri, right? You don't know anything about that project or have the connections for it, but you may know people that actually maybe got some city funds to help fix up houses, right? And you can do that, and you can work with people you know in a community you know. That's what I want to see more than anything in terms of how we build it up. I want to see strength in our communities, building wealth in our communities. And I think that's the way we make a difference.
And that's a very good step in the crime rate too.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
That's exactly
definitely.
right.
Because if you got you get out of survival mode,
Yeah.
and always having to think quick, and it's crazy because I was just talking about this like for mental health awareness. I suffer from depression, generalized anxiety, and actually had to see a psychiatrist, and it took like him telling me like you're only depressed because you're going through all these things.
Yeah.
It's not that you're a depressed person. You're going through a lot and it's making you depressed. You're going through a lot and it's making you anxious.
That's right.
And so it really stems from, as a single mother, I'm always trying to survive for me and my kids.
That's right.
Always. Like I'm always hustling. I work 7 days a week. I do so you never get to sit back and just calm and thrive at life. You know what I'm saying? That's something else like Nipsey talked about. I was like researching all his videos after he passed, and he was like that's what's wrong with us. We are all in survival mode. Nobody is thriving and living and enjoying life anymore.
That's a good point.
And it's crazy that survival, to me, it hits right after high school. So you don't go to college?
Yeah.
Survival mode hits
Immediately.
You know what I mean? You're in the house with moms or whatever. You know what I mean?
Or you're 18, so pay rent now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
If we don't have that in school, like credit, I didn't hear about credit at all.
Until my mom was shot, and then I heard all about credit.
So it's like you don't hear about it now. Everybody's just falling victim to
and
anxiety and just crime and
because a lot of people aren't natural criminals.
That's exactly
it's just what they're going through to have to survive, like I said.
Sure.
So you don't want to see your mama going through that, or your kid. You don't want your kids to have to come up like you came up. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We got
to get the ladies in. Right.
We just came in and took over the show. Sorry.
We
do like to talk.
Right. You get a bunch
I
of men
love it.
around.
Y'all came up with some really good questions. I got 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
One, how do you keep yourself grounded? Like when you're gonna get in this office, you're about to be the mayor, you know what I'm saying? All the stuff that you said while you were campaigning, you gotta, you got to stick to it. You got to do what you got to do. But I know there's going to be people in your ear trying to persuade you to do other stuff or change what you, portray what you're trying to, do. How do you stay grounded and true to yourself? Like, what do you have to do? Is there a process that you have to do every day or once a week or something? How do you do that?
So one of the things that always helped me is I got family that'll call me out on anything, anytime an ego builds up. I'll say this. It probably started from the nerd days, and then I went to a bunch of challenging colleges and law schools. So I never thought I was special, right? I think the politicians who go awry, I ain't gonna name any names, you might have met some over the years, right? They start to think that the position makes them special, right? They start to think that they're somebody better than who they were, 2 days before. And you see that people who make money too, all of a sudden they I'm like, you still the same person from wherever you were.
They try to big time you.
Exactly.
When was these nerd days? I keep hearing about
it's still
these
here.
nerd days.
But no, it started.
Great days, it sounds like.
You missed them.
What?
You missed all those days.
I didn't get him.
You missed them.
Days.
You missed them. Nah, but it's the thing that helps me is just like and my family's still living in the same situation that they largely were before. So when I got out, we started making exactly. So when I started making a little bit of money, right, I helped my mom buy a car. And then I helped, my sisters needed some help. And then, you realize your community does. And then you start to, see everything around you. I'm like, that's me, right? That little kid walking around with this single mother who's, I remember probably my first week of city council, a grandfather was trying to enroll his grandchild in Kansas City public schools. I don't know how he got to City Hall, though, and he came up to my city council room. And at first I was trying to do like that. I'm sorry, I can't help you. You need to go to the school board building. Right? Like it's just, but then I was just kind of like, you know what? He has nobody who's helping him right now. Nobody. And I'm like, think back to that position, right? Where all you are around all these tall buildings, nobody's extending you a hand, and he's just trying to say, I'm trying to make sure this child gets educated.
Yeah.
And it's like those types of things almost every day that keeps me grounded, because I see myself in so many of these stories, and I will never stop seeing myself in them, because I am not better than anybody else. And people always say you worked hard or whatever else. No, I think it is a lot of luck for all of us. The reason all of us are walking around today is because either a bullet didn't find us or a parent made sure we were fed and all that sort of stuff. And it could have gone a different way.
Would that, you consider that luck though?
I do. I go to church too much now, so I'm going like.
I was going to ask you about that too. Right.
So maybe I see it as fate or something like that, but I do, because it's like, I mean, look, and she's gonna get mad at me, but I'll just blow up her spot like that, because I think it's good to be real. My mother had 3 different children, 3 different men, right? Was in and out of all this sort of trouble at the time. There is finished high school, but didn't go on to college, do anything like that, and was just surviving in the hood through the 80s, right? There is nothing that, like, and I know she worked hard to raise her kids, but a whole bunch of other people did too.
Yeah.
I don't think there is anything unique or special other than she instilled in me some values, and I've been working since. But I think there are a lot of other people who work hard every day and who don't get those same opportunities. So my thing is, how do I just build more opportunities for everybody in our community?
I was going to ask you about if you went to church, so it was good to hear that you do. But how do you feel like? So I feel like whenever you watch the news, you catch the Republicans and Trump being we're the party of Christians. Like, so how do you respond to that? How do you feel like? Because it annoys me.
You're right.
And then you see pictures of black pastors going in and meeting with all these people, and they're the party of Christians, and then they come try to sell that stuff back here.
Yeah. It's because there's some big people. I'm on Facebook all the time now because I got to be. And then all these people that try to troll me sometimes, like, you claim to be a Christian, but you don't stand for my belief, like hating gay people.
They be trolling him so hard.
Like, no, because the world I grew up with was that it's a Jesus who cares about poor people. It was Jesus who cared about the prostitute, right? It's all these things that's like, and it's not judgment. It's creating new opportunities. It's fundamentally about second chances, right? And so for me, yeah, it does. It angers me how many people take advantage of, I think, religion sometimes for negative viewpoints and to marginalize other people. Right. I don't think that is right. I see it too often, and I think that's one of the biggest problems of politics right now.
How hard is it for you to keep your composure when
because I know
other politicians get petty?
Go off anytime.
I usually am good at being patient, because I know the minute I break it, then I'll be on the first one on the news.
In the gym.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's almost like that's what they're waiting on. Like, I knew it. I was waiting.
They're trying to pull it out of you.
I mean, it's like these. I mean, I think that's half of the. I know I've been talking about it, but that's half of my opponents' negative ads. They're trying to say, oh yeah,
90K.
Look, right. They're like, oh yeah, Lucas, you're not this, you're not that, you're not this. They want me to respond in some sort of negative way. And everybody be like, oh my God.
So who ran the negative campaign? I haven't seen it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. So my thing is, when I seen that, like, seriously, me and my best friend, we was walking around Loose Park, and dope houses.
Yeah.
Big old signs out there. And I even seen one of yours.
Yeah.
One. Not as big as he got on this side.
Right, that's true.
What do you say to the people who feel like, because you kind of mentioned this too, some people, it's like crazy because you like the happy medium. Like some people like, oh, well, you don't believe you black, so you just gonna represent the black people. But then you got other people who like, okay, well, he's black and he's not black enough, so he's not gonna do nothing for us.
Right.
What do you say to those people to kind of gather in, their votes, or even just to see who you truly are as a mayor?
Right. And my view has always been, and I've had people walk up to me like, well, Quinton Lucas, will you be the mayor for the blacks? Right? White people walked up to me and asked that. And then, but then you're right. On the other side, there are people like, you're going to sell us out just like all the sharp-talking brothers have in years past. My answer is this, right? One, I don't care what anybody says. I'm never going to forget where I'm from, right? If you have ever lived in a house where I remember my mama had no money.
Okay.
And I had like $10. I think it was 5th grade. And I was like, I'm going to go out and buy food. And was saving the milk from the cereal every day and all that sort of stuff. That's the sort of thing that you do not forget.
You don't forget that.
I don't forget, being at a funeral.
Struggle,
right. A funeral for family members, right? It was a teenager who got murdered, right? Those are things. And that wasn't long ago, right? I mean, that's the sort of thing that it's like, you know what? I will always remember that. And so yeah, people can challenge it. But I'm just saying, hey, look at my record. Look at where I've picked fights.
Yeah.
Look at when I've taken on business community issues, all that sort of stuff.
By yourself
and then look at where I'm
sometimes.
from. That's absolutely right by myself. This jail thing kind of been me talking. Right, because some of my fellow African American council members, and I mean no disrespect to them, but they see things a different way.
That's crazy.
Right, and then I'll just say this for the many, and I know you have viewers of all demographics.
Yeah.
My view is, if we take care of poor folks in our community, we're taking care of rich folks. If we're making opportunities for people to be able to get work, take care of their families, right, be able to catch a bus route that actually runs more than once an hour, right? Then you actually are creating more opportunities for yourselves, right? And so my thing is, every issue I've talked about, housing, crime, right, investing in our schools, particularly our poorest ones, I think helps build a better Kansas City. Because the way Kansas City fails long term, I'll just let you know, you can't have a city just a whole bunch of rich people and then a whole bunch of folks that are just toiling
sludge at the bottom. Boy.
Because look at a place that's unsustainable right now. Like, I was reading a story about Los Angeles today, right, where they got all these homeless folks on the streets, right? You got all types of different crime issues. You've got all these things, and maybe it's working right now, but long term, you can't have it like that. You need more people to be able to have opportunity. The Purge. I like that. That's my weakness. I watch all those movies. I'm waiting for a new. Maybe that's how I get through the day. I just imagine.
Yeah. Worse. That's dope.
Hilarious.
I'm fine. Don't worry.
Okay. Here's my last
take it
question,
serious.
Yes, ma'am.
What's up with this marijuana though?
Woohoo.
Had to fix the jacket. You've been waiting on that one.
Marijuana in Missouri. What do you think about that? What's your take on that? I'm just asking.
Yeah. It's easy. I think it needs to be. I think it needs to be legalized. I think it needs to both be legalized. I think we need to expunge all past convictions that are standalone marijuana convictions. That needs to be, because here's the thing. This is why I'm sticking to my point. Right, because when I say legalize, people are like, yeah. I'm like, no, don't stop there.
Which legalization? Is it the medical or the
no, all?
All of it. Okay.
I actually would support all.
Because
like
you see
that.
what Illinois just did, right? And
She lit up.
Was it 77,000 or 770,000 convictions that were expunged and overturned?
Yes.
And just think about that 77,000 people who now can go apply for a job and they don't have a marijuana conviction on their background.
I don't have to talk about
and
it.
the
Or
record
they can
is
go
clear.
vote as well.
Period. Do you hear me? Like, I mean, well, stop.
That's the way it looks,
why is liquor?
What I do?
He's like, why is liquor legal? Right.
But
when you think about the tragedies that
nobody going crazy.
Right.
My bad.
Driving crazy off marijuana.
Right, exactly.
Did you see them goggles that NBC News?
Yeah,
special?
those goggles was.
But you know what? And I had a police officer tell me this, and he won't admit to it if I challenge him. But nevertheless, police officer told me, a good man. He was just kind of like, all I know is I've never had to fight anybody on marijuana.
Okay.
Right?
So
I had to
crime
fight.
will go down.
I've had to fight with drunks. I've had to fight people at home. But he's like, I never found anybody who's just like, smoked some marijuana that was trying to, fight with me.
Right.
And that to me, said a lot.
Said a lot. Says a lot.
All right, just want to know.
That's all she wanted to hear.
That's all.
She got her answer.
She been waiting for that the whole time.
All the way to the end.
Let's get through this.
So this is the scenario. You got a daughter. She's 13. Her best friend's 13. The daughter gets pregnant.
But you talking to him or me?
I'm talking to everybody, but I want him to answer this stuff. The best friend's 13, and she's having a baby shower. Do you let your daughter go to that baby shower?
You get that question.
That's interesting.
That's fire.
Look, I was scared for nothing.
I know. I was a little concerned.
Yeah. My answer is yes. And I'll tell you why. And I learned it from my sister. My sister's a public school teacher. The teacher's freshman. And one day I was like somewhere with her, and I got in her trunk. I'm like, why you got all these like baby gift baskets? Because she's like, nobody ever tells a young woman who gets pregnant earlier that we're here for you, we love you, something like that. Mm-hmm. I get the point that, actually, I don't. I think the old school version is say, no, we need to push them away because then everybody's going to think it's okay. I don't think that's true. I think you can actually, particularly if you're doing what you need to do, if I'm doing what I need to do as a father, right, then I'm making sure my 13-year-old knows that there's a cost to having a child, there's all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, we spend enough time telling Black women, Black children that there's something wrong with what they are or what they've done. No, you know, when you're bringing a child into this world, we're going to be there for you. And that's just kind of where I am on it.
Speaking of having a kid, what do you think about the whole abortion?
I knew you was going.
I knew you was going.
I know, but we got.
No. It ain't got. I mean, no. My position is clear. I don't think that's a place that the state should be regulating. Right. I think that abortion bill was ridiculous. I mean, and I do not stand for something like that because I think that's a choice of a woman. I think this is something we've had as law for like 47 years now. And I don't see a reason to change it because if we changed it all tomorrow, people would still be getting abortions. We'd be putting people's lives at risk, more lives at risk. And I think that's, not a place for us to intrude.
I agree. Okay.
Win or lose, we never see each other again.
Yeah.
What would you tell us to take home with her?
I love that. You better go, Nick Big Dog.
Yeah.
Right. Straight professional.
You better go, Nick Big Dog.
You know what I'm going to say this?
Come on. Say it.
I'll say this. Win or lose, mentor somebody younger, right? That's the biggest thing we can do, right? I'm where I am because of mentors I saw, right? And I don't care if it's somebody watching who thinks they have messed up every step of their life. Right? Maybe they haven't taken care of their kids. They done this, that, and the other. But I'm like, you can have an impact in somebody's life.
Period.
And I want everybody to do that.
Oh, love it.
You're awesome. You guys are awesome. My heart's warm.
I know. I'm so glad you guys came on the show.
Okay.
Yeah, thank y'all. This was different.
No, because this has been
They was asking me about my dating life last time.
I mean, that's dope. I mean, that's dope too. Like get to know a person.
Oh, God, y'all have to go back and watch the old interview.
Oh, y'all got that on video?
We do.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Or you can listen to it
audio. So came on my both sides.
So, we're Night Hype Show. What's your socials?
Mine is it's me J_G on Instagram.
I can never, like when I'm trying to tag everybody in I can never find him.
Yeah, they can't do it.
It's not easy.
I just type in
JG. It's hard to find too.
At Rudy Rowe at Rudy Rowe 85 RUDYROWE 85. Dominique Kirkendall on Facebook. DOMINIQUEKUYKNDALL.
Okay.
At Save It the number 4 the podcast on all social media platforms.
Alrighty, what about you?
I'm at correct me if I'm wrong. I'm at Quinton _Lucas QUINTON _LUCS. That's Instagram. Otherwise, just Google. You're gonna find.
You're gonna find him. It might not be his Instagram.
Right.
But you're gonna find something.
You find something.
Also, check out at Watch Your Mouth podcast.
Hey.
Okay.
Y'all better put them shameless plugs in.
Okay. Well, I'm about to do QuintonLucas.org again and vote June 18th. Vote. And I want any of y'all registered during the Obama time, all of that. You need to vote for this race. It's important. It's important.
And so what? It's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay, 6 a.m.
6 a.m. So when you wake up real early, got those kids moving.
I'm not. I'll just go on lunch. You they let you leave to
do.
vote. Did y'all know that? That's the incentive to vote. They let you leave
get
work.
Some time off.
Yeah.
You were gonna do yours.
I wasn't actually, but you can find me somewhere on all their pages.
Shout out TJ Burrell and
Podcast Nick on Instagram and Nick Bendove on Facebook.
You been getting plugged all episode.
I appreciate it too. I think we got we got this thing going on. We got this chemistry going on with this. So cool. On our podcast, I do scenarios. So I got a clean scenario.
Okay.
Let's go.
Everybody
right here. Don't clean it. It's gonna
shout
be
out Zay Fields.
Okay, so anywho, my name is swag_YOU1. I didn't get to say mine. Nobody even said it.
Don't forget the hashtag.
Hashtag swag. And shout out to you guys. Everyone give me some
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really good to be with you. I look forward to being back after I win. I'm gonna come back. Are we gonna be on all the shows? I'll come up with a better, social media.
You gotta put some. Next time we gonna put him in some J's, just for the pictures.
Oh.
I gotta say it's real dope for two podcasts to link up and talk. Yeah, that's dope. So we should do more of that.
Thank you guys for coming. Yeah, we definitely gotta do another
crossover.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciate the invite.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all.
That's the Night Hype Show.
That's us.
Vote June 18th.
June 18th. All right, y'all.
See you later.
I introduce.
Bye.